You are the light of the world. Stop hiding your true self. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. These words from Matthew 5:14-16 might be some of the most radical statements ever made about human nature. Think about it. Jesus didn't say, try to become the light, or work really hard, and maybe you'll be worthy of light. He said, you are the light of the world. But here's what's heartbreaking. Most of us don't believe it. We hide. We shrink. We dim our light because we've been told we're not good enough, smart enough, worthy enough. We put our lamp under a bowl because we're afraid of what others might think. Today, I want to talk to you about something that could change your entire life. The truth that you already are the light you've been searching for. This isn't just feel-good motivation. This is backed by ancient wisdom that goes back thousands of years, psychological research that explains why we hide, and practical steps you can take starting today. Whether you grew up in church, walked away from religion, or never considered yourself spiritual at all, this message is for you. Because at the deepest level, this isn't about religion. It's about recognizing the divine spark that exists within every human being and learning to let it shine. We're going to explore what Jesus really meant when he called us the light of the world, what ancient communities like the Essenes understood about human dignity, and how modern psychology confirms what the mystics always knew, that hiding your true self creates suffering, while authentic living creates healing, not just for you, but for everyone around you. What did Jesus really mean? The radical nature of this teaching. Let's start with something that might surprise you. When Jesus said, "You are the light of the world," he wasn't speaking to perfect people. He wasn't addressing a crowd of saints and scholars. He was talking to ordinary folks, fishermen, tax collectors, farmers, women who society looked down on, people who had made mistakes. In that culture, religious leaders taught that you had to earn God's approval through perfect behavior, ritual purity, and following hundreds of detailed laws. The message most people heard was, you're not good enough. You need to do more, be more, prove yourself worthy. But Jesus flipped this completely upside down. He looked at imperfect, struggling, ordinary people and said, you are already the light. Not someday when you get your act together. Not if you follow all the rules perfectly. Right now, exactly as you are, you carry divine light within you. This was so radical that it got him in trouble with the religious authorities. They built their power on telling people they weren't worthy. Jesus built his ministry on telling people they already were. The word Jesus used for light here is phos in Greek, the same word used to describe the light that God spoke into existence at the beginning of creation. He's saying that the same creative, divine light that brought the universe into being lives within you. But notice what else he said. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. In other words, when you recognize your true nature, it becomes impossible to hide it. Not because you're showing off, but because authenticity naturally shines. It's like trying to hide a bonfire. It just can't be done. Then he gives this image of putting a lamp under a bowl. In those days, oil lamps were precious. They provided light and warmth for the whole family. Putting a lamp under a bowl wouldn't just hide the light. It would eventually snuff it out completely. This is what happens when we hide our true selves. We don't just deprive the world of our gifts. We slowly extinguish the very life force within us. We become depressed, anxious, resentful, because we're living against our own nature. Jesus understood something that modern psychology is just now proving. Authenticity isn't selfish, it's essential. When you shine your light, it literally lights up everyone around you. When you hide it, everyone suffers, including you. The Essenes and the community of light. To understand this teaching more deeply, we need to look at the spiritual environment Jesus was speaking into. There was a Jewish community called the Essene who lived in the desert near the Dead Sea. You've probably heard of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Those were their writings. Preserved in caves for nearly 2,000 years, the Essenes called themselves the Sons of Light and the Community of Light. They believed that every person had to choose between walking in light or walking in darkness, not as punishment from God, but as the natural consequence of how you live. One of their texts, called the Community Rule, says, "He created man to govern the world, and has appointed for him two spirits in which to walk until the time of his visitation, the spirits of truth and falsehood." But here's what's important. They didn't believe light was something you earned. They believed it was something you already possessed and had to choose to express. Their whole community was organized around helping each person discover and live out their authentic light. They practiced something they called the examination of conscience, not to beat themselves up, but to honestly look at where they were dimming their own light through fear, resentment, or trying to be someone they weren't. The Essenes also understood that you can't shine your light in isolation. They lived in community, supporting each other's growth. They shared their possessions, their knowledge, and their spiritual practices. They knew that when one person's light grows brighter, everyone benefits. This connects directly to what Jesus taught. He didn't say, "You are a light." He said, "You are the light of the world," meaning your specific light, your unique gifts and perspective, are not optional extras. They're essential to the whole. The Essenes wrote, "Those who practice righteousness shall rejoice in the light of eternal life." But their definition of righteousness wasn't about following rules. It was about living in alignment with your true nature, your divine light. They also understood something crucial, that hiding your light doesn't make you humble, it makes you resentful. True humility isn't thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. It's being so secure in your identity as a bearer of divine light that you don't need to prove anything or hide anything. The Essenes faced persecution for their beliefs, just like Jesus did. But they understood that the alternative, living a lie, hiding who you really are, was a form of spiritual death. Ancient wisdom, the universal teaching about human light. What's amazing is that this teaching about human beings as carriers of divine light appears in wisdom traditions all over the world, across different cultures and time periods. In Hindu tradition, they teach about the Atman, the divine spark within every person that is identical to the universal divine consciousness. The greeting, Namaste, literally means, "The light in me honors the light in you." Buddhism speaks of Buddha nature, the inherent potential for awakening that exists in every being. The Buddha taught that we suffer not because we're bad, but because we don't recognize our true nature. In the Jewish mystical tradition called Kabbalah, they teach about the divine sparks that exist in all creation, waiting to be recognized and elevated. Each person's job is to find and kindle these sparks within themselves and others. The Islamic tradition speaks of the light of Allah that exists within human beings. The Quran says, "Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth." Light upon light. Native American traditions speak of the sacred fire within each person that must be tended and honored. Indigenous cultures worldwide have ceremonies specifically designed to help people connect with and express their authentic light. Even Greek philosophy understood this. Plato taught about the world of forms, where true reality existed, and our job was to remember and align with that truth. Aristotle spoke of human beings as having a divine spark of reason that connected them to the cosmic order. The pattern is universal. Wisdom traditions across time and culture recognize that human beings are not fallen. broken creatures who need to earn worthiness. We are beings of light who have forgotten who we are. This isn't feel-good philosophy. This is practical wisdom. When you recognize your divine nature, you naturally treat yourself and others differently. You stop trying to prove your worth and start expressing your gifts. You stop hiding in shame and start living with dignity. Carl Jung, The Psychology of the Hidden Self. In the 20th century, Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung gave us scientific language for what these ancient traditions knew intuitively. Jung studied mythology, religion, and the human psyche, and he made some remarkable discoveries. Jung observed that most people live what he called the persona, a mask they wear to fit in and gain approval. The persona isn't necessarily bad, but problems arise when people identify completely with their mask and forget who they really are underneath. He wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But Jung understood that most people are terrified of their authentic selves. Why? Because somewhere along the way, we learned that being ourselves wasn't safe or acceptable. Jung called this authentic self the self, with a capital S, not the ego that needs constant validation, but the deeper identity that connects us to something larger than ourselves. He believed this self was divine in nature, a direct connection to what he called the collective unconscious, the shared wisdom of humanity. But here's where Jung's insights become really practical. He discovered that when people hide their true selves, it creates what he called neurosis, anxiety, depression, addiction, and other forms of psychological suffering. Jung treated thousands of patients, and he found a consistent pattern. People got better not by becoming someone else, but by becoming more authentically themselves. He wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." Why is it terrifying? Because it means giving up the protection of hiding. It means risking rejection, criticism, or failure. But Jung discovered that the fear of rejection is usually much worse than the actual experience of being authentic. Jung also identified what he called the shadow, the parts of ourselves we're ashamed of and try to hide. He found that denying the shadow doesn't make it go away. It makes it stronger and more destructive. But when people could accept and integrate their shadow, they became whole and genuinely confident. This connects directly to Jesus' teaching about being the light of the world. You can't shine your light while hiding parts of yourself in darkness. Authentic light includes acknowledging your imperfections without being defined by them. Jung observed that people who did this inner work naturally became what he called individuated, fully themselves, no longer needing external approval to feel worthy. And something remarkable happened. Instead of becoming selfish, they became more genuinely caring and helpful to others. Why? Because when you're secure in your own worth, you can give freely without needing anything back. When you accept your own light, you can see and encourage the light in others. Why we hide: the psychology of shame and unworthiness. So if we're naturally beings of light, why do so many of us hide? The answer lies in understanding how shame works and how it develops. Shame is different from guilt. Guilt says, "I did something bad." Shame says, "I am something bad." Guilt can be healthy. It helps us learn and grow. But shame is toxic. It tells us we're fundamentally flawed and unworthy of love. Most of us develop shame in childhood, not because our parents were necessarily bad people, but because that's how human families work. Children are completely dependent on their caregivers for survival, so they learn to adapt their behavior to get love and approval. If you got attention when you were quiet and compliant, you learn to hide your natural enthusiasm. If you got criticized for making mistakes, you learn to hide your imperfections. If you were told that certain emotions were bad, you learn to hide those feelings. Over time, these adaptations become so automatic that we forget they're adaptations. We start believing that our false self, the version of us that gets approval, is our real self. And our authentic self, Our natural light gets buried under layers of shame and fear. Carl Jung called this the inflation of the persona, when the mask becomes so important that you forget there's a real person underneath. The tragedy is that the very strategies we used as children to get love end up preventing us from receiving love as adults. Think about it. If you're always performing, always hiding your real thoughts and feelings, then any love or appreciation you receive feels hollow. Deep down, you know they don't really know you, so you feel loved and lonely at the same time. This creates what psychologists call the authentic self-wound, a deep sense that who you really are is unacceptable. You might be successful, popular, even admired, but you feel like a fraud because you're not being yourself. The beautiful thing about Jesus' teaching is that it addresses this wound directly. When he says, "You are the light of the world," he's not talking to your performance or your persona. He's speaking to your authentic self, the real you that you've been hiding. Modern research in psychology confirms what Jesus taught. Authenticity is strongly correlated with mental health, life satisfaction, and meaningful relationships. People who feel free to be themselves are happier, healthier, and more resilient. But authenticity requires courage, the courage to be disliked by some people in order to be truly loved by others. Practical steps: how to let your light shine. So how do we actually do this? How do we stop hiding and start shining? Let me give you some practical steps you can start using today. Step 1. Notice when you're dimming your light. Start paying attention to the moments when you hold back, when you don't speak up, when you pretend to be someone you're not. Don't judge yourself, just notice it. Awareness is the first step to change. Maybe you stay quiet in meetings even when you have a great idea. Maybe you laugh at jokes you don't find funny. Maybe you agree with opinions you actually disagree with. Just notice these patterns. Step 2. Start small. You don't have to completely transform overnight. Pick one small way to be more authentic each day. Maybe it's expressing your real opinion about something minor. Maybe it's wearing something that reflects your personal style instead of following trends. Step 3. Practice self-compassion. When you notice ways you've been hiding, don't beat yourself up. Remember, you developed these patterns for good reasons. You were trying to survive and get love. Thank that part of yourself, then gently choose differently going forward. Carl Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Acceptance comes first, transformation follows." Step 4. Find your people. Look for relationships where you can be more authentic. This might mean deepening existing friendships by sharing more of your real thoughts and feelings. It might mean finding new communities where your authentic self is welcomed. The Essenes knew that living in the light requires community support. Find your circle that celebrates, not suppresses, your light. Step 5. Honest self-reflection. Develop a practice of checking in with yourself regularly. Journal, meditate, pray, or just sit in silence and ask, how am I really feeling? What do I actually want? Where am I being real and where am I pretending? Step 6. Use your gifts. Jesus said to let your light shine so others can see your good deeds. This isn't about showing off, it's about service. What comes naturally to you? What do you enjoy doing? How can you contribute in a way that feels true to you? Step 7. Set boundaries. Sometimes letting your light shine means saying no to things that drain you. Boundaries aren't walls, they're gates, letting in what nourishes you and keeping out what depletes you. Step 8. Embrace imperfection. Your light doesn't have to be perfect to be valuable. In fact, your struggles often make your light more relatable to others. Remember, Jesus chose imperfect disciples. Step 9. Practice gratitude for your uniqueness. Instead of wishing you were different, start appreciating what makes you who you are. Your specific combination of gifts and experiences has never existed before. and never will again. The ripple effect, how your light heals others. Here's something beautiful that happens when you start living authentically. It gives other people permission to do the same. Your light literally helps others find their own light. Think about people who have inspired you. I bet it wasn't because they were perfect. It was because they were real. They owned their story, lived their truth, expressed their authentic gifts. Something in you recognized something genuine in them, and it called forth something genuine in you. This is what Jesus meant when he said, "Your light should shine so others can see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." It's not about getting praise for yourself. It's about inspiring others to connect with their own divine nature. Carl Jung discovered this same principle in therapy. He found that when one person in a family or group began living more authentically, it often triggered positive changes in everyone around them. He called this psychological contagion, but the good kind. The Essenes built their entire community around this principle. They believed that each person's commitment to living in the light strengthened everyone's ability to do the same. When one person's light grows brighter, the whole community benefits. In practical terms, your personal healing becomes a gift to everyone around you. When you stop hiding behind masks and pretenses, it helps your family, friends, co-workers feel safer to be themselves too. Your children learn that they don't have to earn love by being perfect. Your friends learn that relationships can go deeper than small talk. Your co-workers discover that creativity and collaboration flourish when people bring their whole selves to work. Even strangers benefit from your authenticity. When you show up as yourself, kind but not fake, confident but not arrogant, human but not diminished, you become a living reminder of what's possible for them. This doesn't mean oversharing or forcing your story on others. It means being present, speaking truthfully, living in alignment with your values. Research backs this up. Authentic people have better mental health, more satisfying relationships, and contribute more meaningfully to their communities. When you're not exhausted from pretending, you have more energy to genuinely care for others. Overcoming the fear of rejection. Let's be honest about the biggest obstacle to letting your light shine. It's the fear that people won't like the real you. This fear is so common, so painful, that most people would rather hide than risk it. But here's the truth. The people who reject your authentic self weren't really your people to begin with. Trying to maintain relationships based on a false version of yourself is exhausting and ultimately unfulfilling. Jesus faced rejection for his authentic teaching. The Essenes faced persecution for their beliefs. Every person who has ever chosen authenticity over approval has faced some form of rejection. But they also discovered something better: genuine connection with those who truly valued them. Carl Jung noticed that the fear of rejection is usually worse than the actual experience. Most of the time, when we show up authentically, people respond positively. And even when someone does reject the real you, you gain clarity. You realize their approval was conditional anyway. But here's the deeper truth. You're already being rejected by yourself. Every time you dim your light to fit in, you're rejecting your own worth. Every time you hide who you really are, you're telling yourself, "My true self isn't acceptable." Self-acceptance is the antidote to this fear. When you know your own worth, other people's opinions become information, not the source of your identity. Closing, your light is needed. As we close, I want you to consider something. The world needs your specific light. Not just a generic version of goodness, but the unique way you see, think, feel, and contribute. There are problems that need your perspective to solve. There are people who need your gifts to feel encouraged. There are lessons you've learned that someone else desperately needs right now. When Jesus said, "You are the light of the world," he wasn't being poetic. He was making a statement of identity and responsibility. Your light isn't just for you. It's for everyone whose life you will touch. The Essenes knew that hiding your light isn't humility. It's actually a form of withholding. It deprives the world of your contribution, and it deprives you of the joy of living fully alive. Carl Jung spent his life helping people discover who they really are. He said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." That privilege is available to you right now. You don't need anyone's permission to be yourself. You don't need to become perfect before you start shining. You don't have to wait until you have it all figured out. You are already the light. You have always been the light. The only question is, will you let it shine? Start today. Start now. Choose one way to be more authentic. Speak one genuine thought. Share one real feeling. Use one of your gifts to bless someone else. The world is waiting for your light, and you've been hiding long enough. Your light matters. You matter. Shine.